Look how long my hair is.
Well, here it is. We are live, and you talked about shaving, and I thought you were actually talking about your beard, and I was laughing. So welcome to Listen Up Maryland with Melanie and James, and it's just us today, James. Just us.
Me, you, and my bushy head. Look at that. Man, I ain't had hair that long in years.
Well, you better hurry up and shave that because, soon it'll really show your lines anyway.
I mean, to be honest, I'm trying to bring back a trend. All my family knows when I was a child, I had the best rat tail in the state of Maryland.
That's fantastic.
Mother Dukes cut it off without telling me, and I didn't talk to her for quite some time. It was a big family issue.
All right. Well, this is Listen Up Live with Melanie, Montague, and James Armel with Montague Properties. We feature local businesses, charities, just events, different things on this page every single weekend. Sometimes if we don't have a visitor, it's just us. And so today we want to hop right in and talk about what we're seeing in the real estate market because it's springtime. It's hot, meaning the market. There's lack of inventory. There's people trying to get in, and we want to give some pro tips on some things that you can do to maybe win a house if you're looking to sell. So we're going to take 30 minutes to kind of just touch on all of these things, interest rates, some good fun stuff. And if you're watching this and you want to be on this next week or any other week, let us know, reach out to James or myself. We're happy to get you on. So let's hit it, James. You're doing these videos every single week.
I have to start. You always correct me when I make the mistake. You didn't ask anybody to ask their questions live.
You are right.
Come on, Melanie. How do you forget that?
Let's do it. I don't know why. All right. So, James, what you've been doing some market updates for your community and your area. You've done it in all 3 counties in Southern Maryland and around. Tell me kind of just a gist. Don't go through each single one, but what are you seeing? What's trending?
Trending, I mean, we're still seeing a lot come to the market, and if you are priced correctly and you have a well done home, you're seeing multiple offers. Yeah. So I mean, on average, between Charles, Calvert, PG, and Arundel, that's the ones I do the statistics on. The days on market are anywhere from 30 to 45 days, depending on the county.
Okay. And some are less.
Yeah, and I mean, I think at most Charles might have 2 months inventory, but you're looking at 1.5 to 2.5 months inventory at most in each county. So it's still very low.
A healthy inventory is about 6 months, right? Yeah. 6 months of inventory. So still very low. And we keep seeing people say things like, it's not a great time to buy, or people aren't selling because interest rates are too high. Some of that is true, right? Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the buying thing, right? So people say don't buy right now because rates are too high. Here's the thing. Now is a great time to buy. And we're not saying that because we're real estate agents. It's because, and we want you to buy a house. We're saying that because when rates drop, the market's going to go haywire.
Yep.
So imagine a giant swimming pool. And imagine like 100 people outlining that pool and they all jump in at the same time. What happens?
Yeah. And I mean, if you went to a public pool like me, it's called rest period. I think there's 20 minutes for the old people to get in and swim around to keep the kids out. And what happens when that whistle blows? Every little jumps in the pool immediately. And I mean, that's kind of what we're predicting for this fall, this winter, when the rates drop. Everyone's been waiting. A lot of people are sitting back trying to get a better rate. And then once they come, I mean, we're already seeing multiple offers now with high interest rates and low inventory. So it's going to be tough. Once these rates drop, you're going to be one of 10, 15, 20 offers on most houses.
Yeah, I showed a house, and it really depends on location. I showed a house in Ellicott City last week, and they had 60 showings in one day. And they sent a message. They had 28 offers, and the rates are where they are. So that's just location, right? Because
where was that at?
But there's only one winner, right? So there's a couple of things where there's only one winner. And so if you're competing in this arena, then, there's some tips that we're going to give you. The other side of what we want to talk about with the interest rates and what's happening with them, we keep hearing they're going to come down. There's no crystal ball that anybody actually really knows what's going to happen. If you get into a mortgage today and you buy a house today, people are still saying, well, we're seeing values go down. What you're not seeing happen is values are not going down. You're seeing people overpricing their properties. And so they're bringing their price point down to get a buyer to actually purchase the property in the right price point that it should be in, a competitive price point. So values are not decreasing, values are increasing. So if you don't get in today and you are at maybe the bottom line where you can get in, you're going to be priced out of the market and you may not ever be able to buy a property, right? That's something that could happen. We don't want to see that happen with people. So if you could get in today and refinance in a year, is that a smart thing to do?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're telling all of our buyers right now is it's kind of almost too late now because you're already competing with a lot, but get the house now before it's insane in 6 months and you'll get the better rate. You might even be able to get closing costs in certain areas. So that'll save you cash up front. And then a year from now, you're sitting comfortably and refinancing to get a better payment while everyone else is out in the rat race being one of 10, 15 offers.
Yeah. So we're still seeing sellers accept some closing costs. It kind of just depends on the situation. Yeah. We're seeing sellers allowing inspections. And by the way, I'm going to say, I think you feel the same way, James. Everybody should have an inspection. You should always know what you're buying. You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. You should never waive that, but it is your choice if you choose to do so.
Yeah. Depending on the home, I mean, I take some of my buyers and some of them have friends that are HVAC or, your major components of the house, and they look at it before we put an offer in. So you didn't get the full home inspection, so you can't ask for caulking and nail pops, but the major components of your house, are taken care of. But I would never recommend buying a house without a home inspection. We just backed out of an offer yesterday because it took us 2 weeks to find out so many issues. I mean, the foundation would have cost her $15,000 and it would have been a hot mess. And we almost didn't because the crawl space was so small. I had to call like 15 people just to find someone to get in there. So she was just almost ready to give up and buy the house. And luckily we didn't because one of the main beams below was just rotting away and it needs all this other work. So if she had not done the home inspection, she would have bought a home at top value and probably had to put in another 20, 30 grand after she moved in.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. So let's talk about the selling side of this. And I'm going to go, well, let's talk about buying tips, right? So here's a couple buying tips. If you have an agent that you've signed with, that's fantastic. You should question their ability or their knowledge of this type of a market and how to win. Because it's not just going out there and gunslinging, right? You have to have strategy and you need to know what you're doing. And you as a consumer or the consumers need to understand what they may have to do to win too. It's not always what we want to do, it's what we have to do. So it's a fine line. A couple things that we did not see here in the last market in Southern Maryland very much, but we did see it in Montgomery County. We did see it in Howard County and some in Anne Arundel County. Little controversy around this. Yet it worked in those areas. So what buyers were doing is there are inspection companies out there that will do what they call a walk and talk. It's a 45-minute inspection. And what they check are the major components of the house. They take a look at the roof. They take a look at the HVAC. They take a look at the water heater, the foundational pieces. And that gives them a peace of mind that those major items are not broken or need something. And a little controversy around that because people say that their license is on the line if they do that and something happens as the inspectors, but there's many companies out there doing it. So it may be something as a buyer that you would consider doing instead of asking for a full-blown inspection and an inspection period. You could just do it before you make the offer, but the seller has to agree to allow you to come in with an inspector. You can't just show up with one. Okay. What other buying tips do you have, James?
I mean, I think that might be a bad idea. I'm not sure if you're using that tactic, but if I'm doing something like that, I'd rather just have the plumber, the HVAC guy with me, because what's an inspector going to do? They're going to recommend you to get a licensed professional to look at it anyway. So
just depends, right?
Yeah,
it just depends.
But
if you're competing against 28 other offers and you don't have an inspection contingency and you had a pre-inspection, that might just make you feel comfortable enough to move forward, but you have to have permission.
Yeah. And I mean, right now it seems like we're going back to the COVID market. So a lot of the trends are coming back. It's really, is your agent being competent on your end and asking the listing agent what the seller wants? Because not every seller wants the same thing.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they want to settle in 20 days if possible because they're out of town. Some of them want rent backs. And I mean, rent back is an option of, I I wouldn't want to do it, but if it's going to help me win the house, hey, stay in the house for an extra 2 months. It's on me. And that's kind of what you have to do to win some of these deals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, because what happens is that a seller can't get a contingent offer accepted wherever they're moving, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is they need to sell their house first and then go land a home somewhere else. So they're looking for that rent back, right, to be able to do as such, because it's not forgiving on the other side. So that's tough for the sellers, right? So the sellers are in a pickle. So if you want to win, you got to know what the sellers want. You need to be able to accommodate a seller to the best of your ability. Of course, like right now is a great time because school doesn't get out until June, right? So people want to rent back. They want to be able to do that. You may not be moving till June either. So that could just work out perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about timing. And I mean, that's hard for the seller. There's nothing more terrifying. I have an uncle that's out of state right now that put his house under contract and he settles in 2 weeks and he doesn't know where he's going to go. And to be honest, I put that on the agent. I don't know the agent personally, but that's something that we should, as a professional, had planned out for him, or at least
guided.
Let him know that this is going to be a major concern for you.
Yeah. So let's touch on that options that he would have, right? So short-term vacation rentals, there's tons. This is the whole craze, and people have them everywhere now. They used to be like nothing you could find before. Now you can find them everywhere. So it's something where you could reach out to a short-term rental and see if you could rent for a month or 2 months. A lot of times they will give you a discounted rate from the day-to-day to do a week or a month or something along those lines. But you have to understand, it is going to be more expensive than just renting like a regular rental place. But then you also have to store your stuff somewhere. So I would suggest getting pods and having it stored, especially if moving out of the area, because then they can move them wherever you want when you're ready to go.
Yeah. And I mean, the two things you just said was a rental and pods. That's a lot of money out of your pocket. And had you planned it correctly, had someone advised you correctly, that'd have been money you should have been able to save.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. Yeah. And not always, right? Sometimes it's just in the cards. Here's the other thing that we see is people just making offers way over the list price just to win.
Yeah.
I will tell you that you have to proceed with caution with that, because either you're going to pay out of pocket the difference, you're going to lose the house, or if it doesn't appraise, right? This is all if it doesn't appraise. Or, you're in negotiations again, which that's fine. If you're in negotiations again, you come with a happy medium. I just had that happen to me in a new home sales subdivision where almost everything is brand new. And so this is a resale in that. So we don't have as many comparables to use because you can't use new construction against resale. And we came in $13,000 shy. And so we're negotiating it out, and we're going to meet, somewhere in the middle with some sort of numbers that work for both parties. And we're moving forward, but that's not how it always works out. And we don't control those appraisers. James, how does the appraisal process work?
I mean, they do what we do. I mean, we just call it a competitive market analysis. We look for comparables within hopefully the neighborhood, if it is a neighborhood. If not, we can go out to 3 miles. But I mean, they're a little more detailed, and people call me and ask if they should get an appraisal because they don't realize that we can pretty much do the same thing. Because appraisals, just like people, they're all different. We could get an appraiser down here from Frederick or Baltimore, and he's going to give you a completely different appraisal than somebody that local would have because they don't know the market. So we're all professionals, and we're all going to give different opinions, whether it's an appraisal or a market analysis.
So you get more money for your house if you put a new roof on?
Negative.
How about a new hardwood floors?
Why would I buy a house without a roof?
Right. How about new windows?
Hey, I just improved my walls. Good. The walls are supposed to be there.
Right. So a lot of these superficial things that people think they should get more money for. I had this guy one time who talked about this roofing system that he had put on his house. And it was amazing because I was like, roofing system, can you please explain to me about a roofing system? I'd never heard of that before. So this company had sold him on a 50-year shingle and a ridge vent, and they called it a roofing system.
Ooh.
And he paid $25,000 for that roof for a standard, just not a hip roof, just a standard roof like this, nothing special. And that was part of his hang up on selling the house, was that he had financed that and he needed to get that money back. So that money didn't affect the buyer. The buyer got a house and made it more saleable
Mm-hmm.
to the buyer.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect the bottom line for the buyer because it's a new roof. It just makes the house like more desirable. So
Right.
yeah, that's a
Yeah,
big
not to add
misconception.
value, but if I go look at a house and it has a brand new HVAC, brand new roof, new windows, I'm stoked about it. That's something I'm going to put an offer on because that's a lot of the major components I don't have to worry about for the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be like, ooh, you put on a new roof, let me add 20 grand. Like, no, that roof was supposed to be there in the first place.
Right. And we did a show earlier about a couple weeks back with a public adjuster for insurance. If you're going to list your house, she definitely would like to come do an inspection on your property so that you would know these things in advance. And so you're not caught with your pants down, per se, with having to put a roof on from an inspection, and having that big cost out of pocket later. Right. So,
yeah. And I mean, just make sure all the major components are functioning. That's really all you need to do when you're listing your house. And depending on the market, if you want, you can offer a home warranty, pay for the first year, which is $400, $500, $600. And then that just gives the buyer a little comfort knowing that if something does go wrong, that warranty company will cover it instead of them.
Sure. You make it sound like that's all you have to do. I will tell you all, that's not all you have to do to get your house on the market. There are lots of things. I've seen some really
No, I was just talking about, you were talking about roof
houses
and windows.
lately.
Yeah. I didn't go into detail about, everything else that we do. But if we're talking major components, I'm not going to replace my HVAC because it's old.
Absolutely.
I'm going to replace it because it's broken and it can't be fixed.
Because if it's working, that's what it's supposed to be doing, right? It doesn't. And let me talk about that for a second. If you go on a home inspector's, the people who regulate them, and I don't have the initials in front of me, but if you go in there and it says, like, they may say that it is at the life expectancy or beyond life expectancy, that is a service date. That doesn't mean that it's bad, and it doesn't mean that it needs to be replaced. It just means that, you as a new homeowner need to know that that's where it is. That's its age. Yep. It's working fine now. So maybe in the near future, you have to replace it. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, any crazy stories you've had lately?
Crazy stories? Well, I mean, I've been out in Northern Virginia quite a bit. And I mean, I know we're talking about how hot the market is, but that's a whole different beast out there. I don't know where these people get their money, but you're looking at 50, 100,000 over asking. And we went to an open house and it wasn't even the nicest house in town. Yeah. And I literally just stood at the front door because, my clients are a family, and I'm like, there's already 70 people in this house and there's no way I'm gonna be able to walk through it with you. So I'll walk through separately because it was madness. And the agent had no control. They were just standing in the corner like they didn't know what to do. And it was like a flashback. I'm like, oh God, we're back to COVID already.
They're in their fetal position. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is crazy. The market is nuts. And like we said, we've referenced two different areas where it seems to be hotter than it might be in Southern Maryland, but Southern Maryland is certainly not cold. No. You were giving some numbers on your report about how many houses were on the market and how many houses hit the market and how many houses went under contract. And I mean, it was almost an even exchange. So it's not like the inventory is climbing. If it is climbing, it's very, very slow. But I will say this, if you're looking to sell your house in this type of a market, you can't just throw it out there and have it look like crap. Like if you want to maximize your dollars, yes, you need to do still what you need to do. People will pay for quality. I recently showed many houses in the 700-800 price point, and you'd be surprised. I mean, dirty dishes in the sink, dog pee pads with pee on them. People didn't clean up.
Yeah.
Toilet's not flushed. House wasn't painted. Just stuff like that. And I had an agent tell me, Melanie, in this market, we don't need to paint. Really?
Not
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, then you'll accept less on your house, right? Because there are two things that really, I say two things. There's one thing that really affects the sale of a property, and it's the price. And the price is determined on multiple factors. So people will say, well, it's condition. No, the price is affected by condition. The location is affected by the price is affected by location. The price is affected by size. The price is affected by all of these things. The common denominator to everything when you're selling a house is the price, is the house priced according to the condition, the location, the temperature of the water of that that property. And it doesn't matter what somebody else got or anywhere else. What matters is the price. Is it competitive to what it is? So if you want to sell $1 million house, you want your house to be $1 million house in a neighborhood, then it needs to match the $1 million houses. And if it doesn't, it's not priced right. It's fact. Simple.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just minor things too. Like you said, cleaning. I mean, we can go over all the basics that we're going to recommend on a presentation. Like, of course, landscape. That's just cheap, and that's the first thing you're going to see. I had a seller this winter argue. He's like, "Why am I putting out fresh mulch in January?" I'm like, "Because it looks good." I was like, "What is the first thing that you see when you pull up to a house?" Everything out front. And he just kind of laughed and agreed. But I mean, yeah, it's silly. You're putting out mulch and fake flowers in January, but when you pull up to the house, it looks like spring, and the house looks a lot better than everyone else.
So I recently put out a reel. I go to a lot of houses and take some videos and pictures, as a lot of people do, but I don't always show the pretty things. And I put out this reel, and I was in this house, and I'm not going to mention location or anything like that because I don't believe in doing that. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. Throwing them under the bus, but secretly. I mean, the floor was not done properly. The doorknobs had been rubbed off. They painted them to be black instead of just replacing them, and it all rubbed off. There was a lot of things, unfinished work in the house. It needed painted. The paint job that was there was terrible. This house had been priced at like over, I want to say 600 and some thousand. I don't remember what it was. And I watched it on the market for a really long time because it didn't sell. It was a really nice house. It just needed a little bit of corrections, right? It was DIY nightmare. And I watched it drop $70,000 over the course of a couple of months. And it was shocking to me because they could have repaired all of that for $20,000.
Yep.
And so they lost, somewhere between, $40,000 to $50,000 in a price because either their agent didn't know and or didn't tell them. Their agent did tell them and they didn't listen, which happens all the time as well. Not all agents are not good. Or it was a combination of the both, right? They talked about it and it was like, I don't really think you need to do it. So it's mind-boggling to me. We see these things. So I've been posting, if you follow me on my reels, you'll see some of the things I put out there, and sometimes they're pretty disgusting, Yeah. James is laughing.
Did you just put a plug in for your Instagram reels?
I so did. A plug.
I've got a book coming out next week. Check me out at Melanie.
What's our new show? No. I did do my plug. You should follow me. You should follow James. We do a lot of content about a lot of things, just coming from contribution to help the community. And I will do another plug for you, James. If you follow my reels, I do buyer tips, seller tips, wealth building Wednesdays, trends, and stories. So and I say stories, real estate stories, all on reels. Follow me. You might learn something.
Surprised you're not holding up different QR codes as you go.
I really don't have anything to hold up, right? Like you're really catching me off guard here. I mean, I've got my calendar. I've got, So the market, we're expected to continue in this trend.
Yeah. And I mean, just today I was reading an article, and even though interest rates have kind of gone up the past couple of weeks, I think today we are at just under 6.5. They said that the mortgage applications are still going up. So, I mean, I think it's just the fact that so many people have waited so long, and you just can't wait any longer. And I think some people are starting to get the good advice of buy now, refinance later to save yourself money long term. Yeah. It just took everyone a while to figure. I mean, it is scary. I mean, I go with half of my clients when they get pre-qualified, and I hear what their payments are going to be, and what they've jumped from in the past 3 years to what it costs now. It's a lot, but eventually it's going to come back down. So if you can afford that short-term pinch on your wallet, long term, it's going to be a better financial decision for you.
Well, we can flip the coin, right? So when you're paying more interest, what else do you get? You get a bigger tax deduction.
Yep.
Right. So it's not dollar for dollar. I get that. And you have to be able to afford the payment monthly. And we don't want people eating oodles and noodles and throw a couple shrimp in there for a special occasion. Yet at the same time, there with every bad, there's a good, or every pro, there's a con. And so if you look at it that way, not only, yes, you're having to pay more in a payment now, you get a larger deduction on your taxes, yet at the same time, the flip side that nobody talks about, as we've talked about, is the values going up, is you're building equity, which is building wealth for you as well. And since it's going up faster than it has before, you're gaining it faster, right? So the thing is you're building wealth. So why delay building wealth? Let's build it now, get in, and let's get it going, right? I mean, it's a known fact that if you own a property, your net worth is way more than somebody who's renting. It's fact.
Yeah. And I mean, working with a great agent is because you're also working with a great team. You know, I love Tim Murphy. He sits down and explains it. And I had a younger couple. They're both making well over 6 figures each, but you know, they come from a family that never had that kind of money. So they don't have that person. Like, you're not going to talk to your mom about what do I do with this money when she never made more than 20 grand a year.
Right.
You know, you don't have that advice to get from your family. So you need a trusted advisor almost. And the mortgage payment was going to be a lot. And I mean, the house was too much for him. So we kind of talked him out of it because there's no point in them having 7 bedrooms. But we broke down the investment. He was like, you know, that mortgage is going to be high, but after the tax cut, after, you know, a couple other things that Tim will go into detail, it actually made sense. It'd be cheaper for them to buy that house at that rate. So I told him, you know, you can call your mom, you can talk to everyone you want to, but don't listen to people that have less than you about what to do with money. And I mean, that's not to be offensive, but
no, it's fact.
You know, listen to somebody that's got the money, listen to how they got it. And I mean, I talked to Tim, not just about my finance or not about houses, but just general investments and everything. So it's good to have that person on your side.
Yeah. I mean, and nothing that we ever say on here is offensive. If you find it offensive, then sorry, we'll say that.
It's a road.
You know, the thing is we want to better people's lives. We want to help them. I mean, and people find these things offensive. I will tell you this. I tell people all the time, like, we're going to look for a house or I'm going to sell your house. I'm going to tell you one thing you need to do first is anybody you tell that you're buying a house or selling a house, all of a sudden they become real estate experts. Every single person. And what do? They work for the government or they, you know, work on cars. They work wherever. They're doing whatever they do in their job. And now all of a sudden they have a ton of advice. And I'm not saying their advice is wrong. I'm just saying that you take it with a grain of salt because real estate is not something they do all the time. So maybe the last time they bought a house was 10 years ago. We run into this a lot. And now that people say, well, nobody helped me when I bought a house, so I'm not going to pay any closing costs. Well, maybe the market's changed.
Yeah.
It's not that anybody wants you to give away money or wants you to not help somebody. It's what the temperature of the marketplace is. So if you're adverse to doing whatever is happening around you to be in the right place at the right time to get you the most gain, then you're going to get no gain. And the reason you get no gain is because you're not going to understand what's going on based on someone's opinion that's not in the marketplace. And so listen to them and then go to your trusted advisors, which, you know, or real estate agent. We're not advisors, real estate agent or lenders, people who know what's going on and ask those questions. You ask those questions to get the answers so you can make informed decisions on what's best for you and your family. And that's, you know, no one should really tell you how to do it, but they should give you information so that you can make decisions.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has family and they all, you know, they're looking out for you and they're sharing their experiences, but their experiences might be completely different or 30 years ago. So I'm not saying that they're bad people. They're just trying to look out for you. And let's face it, a lot of financial education doesn't exist.
Right.
I didn't know a lot of this stuff until 5 years ago. And it's shocking to me that I talk to people that make $200,000-$300,000 a year and they have no money in the bank because they just don't know. They make more, they spend more.
Yeah.
They want to live that glamorous lifestyle. But as I told my buyers, I'm like, listen to people. You're in a different tax bracket. You're in a tax bracket. I mean, you're close to being the 1%. And they're in their early 20 or mid 20s. So, I mean, it was shocking to them and me. Like, if you look at the numbers, you are pretty much the 1%. So you can't listen to people that don't have that kind of money on how to spend your money.
Well, kudos to them for being there. And I will also say this, no offense to moms and dads.
Yep.
Stay out of it, man. They want the best for their kids, but their budget is not what mom and dad would want it to be. And then they're not willing to give them money or they don't have the money to help them because they don't have the financial wherewithal, right?
They grew up in a different time and a different world and, you know, money was looked at differently. And I mean, you still have people, you have, I forget what's his name, the guy that swears you should have no credit used at all. Everything
Dave
should be
Ramsey, come
cash.
on.
Yeah. Ramsey, he gets on my nerves, but it's just different opinions. I mean, there's ways to make money off of debt. So, I mean, that's what a lot of people do. A lot of your wealthiest people are carrying a ton of debt and making profit from it.
Well, see, and we'll talk, I'll say this real quick is if you really listen to what Dave Ramsey says, he didn't think you should carry like credit card debt and car loan debt, stuff like that. He does believe in buying homes, but he thinks you should put 20% down. You should have a invested stake in that. The problem is that where we live, 20% down on a house that's livable is a lot of stinking money that in your 20s that you can't necessarily have the time to get, right? You haven't had the time to work in the workforce to build it or save it. So it's difficult. So it kind of goes against, that. I think there's good debt and bad debt. I think things that increase in value, like housing, is good debt. As long as you're not maxed out to the hilt, you should try to have 20+% equity in that property. You should try to do things, but putting all of your money into it isn't always a smart decision either, because you could use that money to invest in multiple things instead of just a house. And then you could double your money versus that. Where people go wrong with housing is they take out home equity lines of credit and refinance their house and take money out to go on vacations or buy cars or things like that. And instead of putting it into something that is going to grow behind closed doors and make passive income for them. That's what people don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, keep as much cash on hand as you can. Like you said, you can turn that into more money if you know what you're doing with it. And I mean, with those buyers, they were willing to, like I said, they have money and they were willing to put another 50 to 100K down. But Tim told them, like, it's not going to drop your rate or your payment that much. It's better off keeping that 100,000 in your bank account and paying it off early.
Absolutely.
And possibly switching to a 15-year loan if you can afford it, because that's a better rate, but that is pretty high risk depending on how much money you make.
Yeah. I always say get the 30-year mortgage, but pay it on the 15-year note.
Yep.
Send extra every single month. And I just did a video. This is another plug. I didn't just do it. I did it, I think last week or the week before, about how if you pay one extra mortgage payment, and I did it on a $500,000 house, pay one extra mortgage payment a year. And I divided it out. So it was like $300 more a month. And it saved you 5 years on your mortgage. So it went from a 30-year to a 25-year, it was like 24.9 months. And it was $145,000 in savings in mortgage interest. What could you do with $145,000? You could buy like 5 houses with that, rent them out, and make a bunch of money.
Yep.
So, all right. Guess that's it today.
Is that it today? No more plugs?
We could talk for a long time, but it is 32 minutes,
Yeah.
and we try to keep this to 30 minutes. So if you would like to be featured on our little show here, Listen Up Maryland with James and Melanie.
You can join our show and put your own plugs out.
Absolutely. And thank you anyone who joined us today and is watching this after the fact. We appreciate it. We want to just bring information to you. If sometimes it's all about real estate, sometimes it's all about the community. We want to serve our community, help our community grow local businesses, and be able to give people information, whether it's real estate or not real estate, to help them in their lives, because sometimes it's just difficult for them to find it.
Absolutely.
All right. I guess that's it for today. We'll talk next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.
See ya.